Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 12 of the All Gunners podcast. This is your host, Zed, a sad Zed. It's been a wonderful week, uh, and we're going to reflect on that wonderful week with my ever present co host, Harry. How are you, my friend? Sorry for the lack of enthusiasm
I
from
was
the
going to
beginning.
say, Zed, very, very flat voice there. I've never ever heard you so flat, even in person, mate. That was really low. That was, mate. Honestly,
Oh, mate, it's,
I
it's
know
to
why.
reflect the mood.
I
It's
know
to
why.
reflect the mood.
I know why,
uh,
mate.
it
I
is
know
it
why.
is a low point. I think in our beginning of our podcast, this is the first time
Yeah,
we have
depression has
covered
kicked
our
in. Yes.
depression is kicked in. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's the football depression that's kicked in for the first
Yeah.
time. But you know what? During discussion of our podcast today, I am going to try to build myself back up. Look on the
Hope
positives.
so, mate. Hope so. There's
Look on
worse
the
things that can
positives.
happen. There's worse things that can happen in life, and we are both Arsenal lovers and enthusiastic about
Absolutely.
our club, and I'd love to really build you back up and say, look, the season's not over yet, and X, Y, and Z, but I think we know the writings are on the wall.
Absolutely, mate. And it'll be the first time that you will be gassing me up rather than the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You're right.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to breaking down what happened. But
Well, what are we
anyway,
going to do today, Zed? What are we doing?
absolutely, mate. We're gonna keep it simple today. Okay. Last couple of pods we've been, having the international break and discussing the potential game at Palace, and then following on, and we made some bold claims. 7 points out of the
Yeah,
next nine is
we
what
did.
we need. So people can check out the last two episodes, episode 11 and 10 of the Organist podcast, and potentially laugh at us. I am looking forward to your comments on that.
Lots of egg on our faces. Lots of egg
lots
on our
lots of
faces.
eggs
Yeah.
on our faces, right? That's what we get for being hopeful. That's what we get for being
But this is
positive.
being an Arsenal fan, isn't it, Zed? This is what we're about.
You know what? That's what it is. So today, mate, we're just going to be breaking down the two games. I don't think we need to do anything else,
Yeah, it's enough, isn't
right?
it?
This is more than enough to make us cry anyway. So let's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
get into it. The first game, Monday Night Football, as Sky puts it, right?
yeah, yeah,
Crystal Palace at home, Arsenal away, and
yeah.
we are looking as the best. I think what did we? Our prediction
I
was
was
1-0 to the
nervous.
Arsenal.
I was nervous. I can't lie with this one, actually, Zed. I was nervous. I think Palace. Palace. I mean, we're going to discuss Brighton. These are our two bogey teams, aren't they? Really?
Palace is definitely a
Yeah.
bogey team. I think since Wenger's last days, Palace have definitely been Arsenal's bogey
Well, these
team.
are both of the teams that stopped Emery getting Champions League 3 seasons ago, if I
Well,
remember correctly. Yeah.
are you saying history repeating itself,
Well,
mate?
it clearly has, and that's why I was nervous here. I have to remember. Don't forget as well, Zed, that
Yeah.
they beat us virtually, if not the last kick of the game, at the Emirates.
Yes,
Um,
they did.
so
Yeah.
so they're no mugs under Vieira, and we that
No.
was a tough game. So I was nervous. I can't lie.
Okay.
I think. Look, I wouldn't begrudge any Arsenal fan, including yourself, for being confident with our recent run of fixtures and ability to bounce back after a defeat. For example, when we came back after the Liverpool game, I can't even remember now who we played straight after the Liverpool, but we put 3 points back on the board and we
I
registered.
think it was Villa
It
that
was
was
Villa,
against
and that was a
Villa.
very good, convincing performance. So I don't begrudge any Arsenal fans for thinking that actually we'll scrape something or we'll get something at
Hmm.
Palace. But I was hopeful that look, I'm always hopeful for a win whenever we play, whoever we play. But I was
Of
like,
course, of course.
if we get a draw here, I don't think it would have been a bad result because I actually think that Palace at home with their fans behind them. It's not the largest of stadiums as well, so when they're making
No.
noise, you're hearing it. You're close on the
Absolutely,
pitch.
absolutely. It's a passionate fan base, and it's
Very
a very,
passionate.
very,
Yeah,
very, very good fan base. I actually like the Crystal Palace fan
I
base.
like
They're
that.
very
I've got
lovely.
nothing against them. I actually
No, no,
very much
absolutely not.
respect clubs like Crystal Palace. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, absolutely.
they've got good
So
players and a very good manager,
a very good
as we
manager,
found out.
and an Arsenal legend,
Yeah,
right, getting one over his club. So
yeah.
anyway, mate, it finished on paper 3-0. That is one of the biggest defeats we've had against Crystal Palace. I think it's the same defeat that we had probably 2017, 3-0 again
Yes. Yeah.
at home at Selhurst Park. 25,000 people sitting close to the ground, really making that noise. It is a hard place to go and put a performance in. City found that as well. I think they drew there as well recently. So take us through the game. What did you think?
Yeah, I think we were outplayed from the whistle, Zed, to put it
Oh,
simply.
okay.
We were outplayed. I don't think there were any real periods of the game where we were in control. I don't know what happened. I saw a different Arsenal.
Hmm.
Look, we know that Tierney was not going to play for that game.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing that I can put it down to is, look, we are the youngest team in the league, and it's been, lauded and positively spoken about. But I think when you want to give consideration to the downsides, the cons,
Yeah. Yeah.
it came out. The downsides of having the youngest team in the league came out against Palace. We bottled it. The team absolutely
Do you
bottled
think
it.
that's what it was, bottled, or was it just a slow start and just
No,
not enough?
I think they felt the pressure. I think the fact that Tierney wasn't in the starting lineup. Look, we're gonna. I'm sure we'll have a little feature on Lacazette in some part of our theme discussion to do with both games.
Hmm.
He's not really been firing. I think some of our results have been, although performances have been good, they've been 1-0 wins. In some cases, we've been quite lucky to still just walk away at 1-0. I just didn't feel there was a plan for this game.
Hmm.
We've generally in our 1-0s, we've kind of thought, okay, we've managed the game well enough to sort of, okay, we won't push pressure now. We'll just keep the ball and we'll play nicely and see the game out.
Yeah.
There was just no plan there, and looking at the first goal, I can't remember who should have been marking
Mateta.
Mateta.
Mateta. I think for the first goal. So let's actually
Yeah,
break down the first goal,
go
right?
on.
So the cross comes in, and I think Anderson, Joaquin Menderson, just turns his head. I have to say there is an element of luck in the first goal. Not going to say that Crystal Palace didn't deserve it by the way they were playing,
Mm.
right? They were on top of Arsenal from the
There were,
first whistle.
there were.
Gallagher was chasing everything down,
Yeah,
right? We know how hard of a worker he is. People think, oh, he doesn't score, but he brings so much to the team.
he's a brilliant player.
You know what? He's a demon when it
He'd
comes
he'd
to
he'd,
just
he'd walk into Arsenal's team. Gallagher would.
not just Gallagher. I'm talking about Jordan Ayew. He
Yeah,
presses like a demon.
yeah,
Gallagher, obviously, he's shown his class this season. He's been excellent. So they were pushing Arsenal, putting the pressure on, the press on from the first whistle,
yeah.
and it seemed like to me that the players weren't egged on or sharp enough in them to be able
Should I tell
to
you what surprised
play
me, Zed?
around.
I tell you what
Yeah.
surprised me. The team selection surprised me. I can't, for the love of God, understand why. After Martinelli has been playing, you see, Martinelli is been playing well because he's been right for that system with the two eights. I just felt Smith Rowe was just he lacked sharpness for me.
I,
If I'm
I
honest with you.
think, well, I take your point in that, but I think it's probably to do with the fact that he was on duty with Brazil. He did play a bit, and it's a longer flight and longer time back from Brazil than it is.
But I could equally say that Smith Rowe with the England camp hadn't had game time and had not
Yeah,
necessarily
but
been fit.
yeah,
But
but
he hadn't travelled, obviously.
he hadn't traveled. I think that's one of the key points. He hadn't traveled. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's go back to the goal. So Joaquin Menderson gets a lucky, head, and it just bounces. It falls to Mateta, and he does very well to finish it. But I don't think on the play that was going, the Crystal Palace they deserved the goal on the
Mm.
play of it. What do you think of the second goal then?
Remind me who scored the second goal. It was, oh
Jordan
yes, it
Ayew.
was down that right hand side. Was it down
Yeah.
that
No, no. So it's the left hand side with Jordan Ayew with Gabriel just lunges in to
Oh,
close
remember it
down.
now. Yes, yes. So
Again,
yeah,
ball from Joaquin Anderson.
yeah, yeah. It was the one where Gabriel dived to get it and he missed it. If
Yeah,
I remember
he
correctly,
missed it.
yeah. So again, yes, I feel we were too open for that. I think at that point, um, we should be thinking about, look, let's keep it tight near half time, let's regroup and let's come back out again.
Mm,
And I think that was a really cheap goal to give away, to be honest with you. I don't think it was, Gabriel was never going to get that ball, to be honest with you. But again, I think we were they were walking through our midfield,
mm.
literally.
I think Party wasn't as sharp as I expected him to be, and
I suspect Party may have been injured, even
I
maybe not,
think
not 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 fit
I
for
don't
that
think he
game.
was 100%. I don't think he was
Yes,
100% for that game. But that goal specifically, right? I don't think it's Gabriel's fault entirely. I'm not going to say it's not his fault at all. It's not his fault entirely because normally you have Kirantini there,
yeah.
right? Who's very sharp, who reads the game well, who
Sniffs out the
sniffs it.
trouble. Yeah.
Exactly. So he would have. I see. If you look at that goal, Gabriel lunges for it, and Nuno Tavares just stands there expecting him to get it.
Yes. Yeah.
Ayew doesn't give up, and that's what I respect Jordan Ayew for. He doesn't give up. He keeps running, and Nuno Tavares on his heels, just waiting for that to happen. He's not running with Jordan Ayew.
Yeah. Tavares is at fault there, to be fair,
Yeah,
and look, I'm sure we'll have a discussion on him as well. But I think,
yeah,
when you haven't played for so long and then you're thrown in to start at
yeah.
his age as well, it's difficult.
It's very difficult.
And he had a stinker of a game, or
Absolutely,
half. He
half,
had a
half.
stinker of a half. But I have to say that, look, we win and lose as a team. Yes. Look, he's been brought in to be Kieran Tierney's replacement, and
Or number two, rather.
number two, sort of following up. He was putting Kieran Tierney out of the team earlier in the season. You
Yeah,
know.
he was. So there's no denying the fact that the kid's got talent, and there's no denying the fact that he's got a good future ahead of him. But I think you're right in the fact that Arsenal only have one game a season,
Yeah.
and Arteta has stuck so closely to his starting 11,
Which we don't mind. Which
which
we
we
don't
don't
mind.
mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the risk is if you don't rotate, the players on the bench just go rusty,
Yeah.
and when you do have an injury, you are screwed. I think that is something that Arteta has to learn, and that's what he's overlooked.
I agree with you. I think his substitutions in previous games have been far too much, too easy to predict. So we always know that Lacazette is going to come off for Nketiah. Pepe really rarely came, and I think he was only using Pepe as a gamble when we were sort of needing a goal or two,
Mhm.
chasing games. And who's the other go-to substitute that he
Smith
makes?
Rowe.
Smith Rowe, and that's been the problem. I think, to be honest with you, is that I think with Tierney, as we know, his fitness hasn't always been great. Is that it wouldn't have harmed? I absolutely agree with you. Wouldn't have harmed the team to give Tavares some minutes, but I think there's a trust issue there.
There is, but the thing is, again,
Even
you have
before this
to.
game. Even
No,
before this game.
no, I get that, but who's the one who brought Tavares in?
Yeah.
Right, right.
He has
So
to take
he
responsibility.
has,
Yeah.
yeah, he has to take responsibility. He saw Tavares play against Arsenal and liked the player. That was the first signing of last summer, by the way.
Mm,
Right?
mm,
They went out, they got the deal done
it's
because they
true.
knew they needed a new left back because Kolasinac was out. He did not rate him, so he was out. Right? So he got Tavares in, and he started the season on fire.
He did.
Right? He was literally. I remember the Leicester game. He was literally running through the Leicester midfield.
Yeah.
This kid,
He's
right?
got a
So
good burst. Yeah.
he's got good burst. He's got good talent. He can be defensively a bit dodgy, but that's what you expect the coach
We
to
knew
do
that
his job.
though. We knew that he was very raw
Of course
defensively.
he was.
Yeah.
Of course he was. He's young, right?
But
He's a young lad.
this is Arteta's job, to coach him
Absolutely,
in
absolutely.
the areas that we need, because this is Arteta came in as a coach, not as a manager. Don't forget
Hmm.
this, that he came in as
Yeah.
a coach. And if there are deficiencies in the improvement of players, in particular your Tavares, your Martinellis, and your Smiths Rose, etc.,
Hmm.
that has to be down to Arteta.
Absolutely. So I think in that regard, in the squad management, in the game management, there is a bit of fault of Arteta that while he stuck to his starting 11, and we all like that he stuck
He
to it,
hasn't rotated enough.
he hasn't rotated enough. And we discussed in the previous thoughts about how Pepe should be getting more minutes
Yeah,
because
we said.
we know how important it is for him to get going because
Yeah.
we know there's a player there, even if he's, 10 goals a season off the bench, those 10 goals can be the difference between Champions League and no
Mm,
Champions League,
mm,
right?
mm.
So there is something there. So he should have rotated the squad. But anyway, overall, as you said, we win
Third
as a
goal, I
team. We
think
do.
said. I think third goal. We were gonna go on to the
Uh,
penalty. I mean, that was a cruel penalty, wasn't it?
a stone cold penalty,
It
man.
was a
It's just
penalty, but it was just. I mean, it was Mr. Odegaard again, if I remember correctly.
yeah.
Yeah,
You can see him as much as he's a senior player, and we
yeah.
look to him as one of the
There's still
leaders. But
maturity needed, isn't there?
he's still 23, man.
Yeah.
So right.
Oh, and this is why I
So
said at the beginning, Zed, is that this is what we were found at our age and immaturity came through um, in this game, and it's not like
hmm.
they haven't got young players, but they've got a bit more of a better balance, I
Well,
think.
no, there's a difference. So our average age for Crystal Palace is about 27, 28. Ours is
Yeah,
23 or 24.
it's a big difference.
It's a big difference when it comes to it. So it's like Zaha, all of these Milivojevic, all of these players that they have
Yeah,
uh, that are that are playing. So are you Zaha, Kuyate, Schlupp? You know, these are Nathaniel Klein for God's sake, right?
yeah, yeah.
These are senior players essentially that have been playing in the Premier League for ages.
Yes,
Gallagher is new, Mark Gahey is new, Anderson, Mateta, that's their core. So it's a good balance between
it's a brilliant balance.
it's
Yeah,
a brilliant balance
yeah,
between senior players and younger players to coach them, and then the work rate of IU and Kuyate in the midfield. That's what gets it going.
yeah.
And where we have our senior players is the likes of Partey, Xhaka, and Lacazette,
Lacazette. Yeah,
and Cedric to a certain degree.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
Cedric's been solid, and you can't say anything about him for the last
I
seven,
don't.
eight
I
games.
think he was probably the only person who stuck out for me that had an okay game. I think against
He
him.
was his consistent self. I don't think I
Yeah,
could say anything about thing. I think for me, one of the other problems was that throughout the game, Arsenal could not put passes together. So normally
Party. Oh my God, he was losing the ball
everyone
disgustingly. Yeah,
everyone was losing the ball.
they
I
were.
saw
Yeah,
Saka, I think 2 or 3 passes in, and they were closed down. And this is, by the way, a compliment to the way Crystal Palace played with the physicality, with the pace. They showed what the Premier League is about, the way they played,
yeah,
and that with the crowd sitting in, that just got Arsenal players just into that zone of
yeah,
shit,
yeah, yeah. We
shit,
played
shit.
into we fell into the trap. We played into Vieira's hands,
Absolutely.
and to be quite honest with you, Zed, at 2-0, there was never a way back, was there?
No, no. I think half time the game was pretty much over. I expected to come back. Nuno came off. Xhaka went left back. Uh, Lokonga came on. Or Gabriel Martinelli, sorry, came on. That did add a bit more control to it, but there wasn't any chance until about 60 something minutes. I don't remember when Odegaard I think fired wide. That was the first
It was a
real
good chance,
chance.
wasn't it? That was, yeah.
It was a good chance. You expect him to finish that, I think, but he fires wide, and that's your chance of getting back into the game. And
I don't remember them playing, if I'm honest with you, up until maybe the last 5 minutes in stoppage time, and that
they
when
weren't.
we went 3-0 down. When we went 3-0 down, I actually saw more play in those last few minutes than I saw in the whole 90, and that's an issue, for me.
That's of course. I think that they didn't react quick enough. They didn't get off
Yeah,
to pace quick enough. I think if you look at the raw stats, people say, "Oh, Arsenal still has 60 something 8% possession." Yeah, but they couldn't put more than 4 passes together,
yeah, that's disgusting. Horrible
which is
performance.
absolutely. I think
Filthy performance, Ed. Filthy.
yeah, I think it just wasn't a good performance. I think it was lack of confidence, lack of what you call. I think the game plan was there, but it's just too rusty, too slow, too on the back heel. Crystal Palace came out punching, and that first punch when it landed in the first 2 or 3 minutes, Arsenal went into their shell
Yeah,
and never came out.
I'd say I'd just slightly disagree with you there on the
Right?
game plan was there because I can't tell you what the game plan was, and I think sometimes game plans, Ed, they've got to adapt. So when you see Crystal
Of
Palace,
course.
they're the best team at sort of winning free kicks in brilliant areas where they can whip the ball in, and then they've got really good set piece takers as well.
Yep.
And I think, and if I'm honest with you, I talked about our naivety and immaturity. I'd also say that we were a little bit arrogant. I think we were a little bit complacent rather than arrogant. Actually,
Hmm.
we were complacent because I think our recent run of form. Maybe the boys think, okay, you know what, we'll have a tough night, but we'll get through this. Well, after the first goal, I would have liked to see a bit more tightness, if I'm honest with you. But again, we were just sloppy,
Yep,
out of
very sloppy.
position, giving the ball away. And I don't think Crystal Palace would have had an easy game.
No, no, I think we made it very
I
easy
would
for them.
say, Zed, to you, I mean, I've probably said it earlier on other pods, that was probably the worst I'd seen at that point Arsenal play all season, and we're about to get on to the next worst time I've seen them play.
No, fair enough, fair enough. But I think overall, Crystal Palace deserve to win. I have
They
to say
did.
this.
Oh, they were
They
brilliant.
deserve.
I
They
take
were. They were.
nothing away from them. Congratulations to them because they they basically did a double on us. Zed.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I agree. I think they did. The,
Psychologically, they did a double on us.
I
Yes,
think psychologically they've become even more of a bogey team than they were before.
yes,
Right? There's a block now, and Wilfred Zaha just loves to play against Arsenal. I think he's still mad about the transfer. We went for Pepe instead of him, and he is just still.
and what a great penalty as well.
Oh, you are emphatic. But as soon as that penalty came, I just turned off the game. Honestly, I'm not even lying to you. I was just like, that's it, it's done. I'm not even gonna. I know it's gonna go in, but the performance has been so rubbish that there is absolutely nothing Arsenal can do. But anyway, let's just to sum this up then. What do you think? Just watching on that game alone in isolation. Let's take the Brighton equation out for a second. Arsenal. I have not seen them play as bad as this since the first 2 or 3 games. Agreed or not?
Yeah, yeah. It reminded me of those first two, three games. But what disappointed me was there was a reason, an excuse for why we lost those first three games.
Hmm.
Okay, I can deal with the fact that Teeny wasn't there, but I don't think it was a game that we should have lost 3-0 in that
No,
manner.
no. I agreed. I think 1-0 I would have taken, right? 1-1 I would have loved. Right. I wasn't expecting Arsenal. I think at best, maybe in the previous pods, I've said 1-0 to the Arsenal, right? That's it. But I I still expected a draw, and you expected a draw because we know how good Crystal Palace is, especially against Arsenal.
Absolutely.
But the performance was just overall for me for this game. The performance was just absolutely dreadful. There was no excuse. And I think for such a young team, I expected them to go into half time, be slapped across the faces by Arteta and said, what the absolute hell is going on there? Senior players, stand up, lead, get this shit together. Right? I
Absolutely.
expected a response. And that's happened, by the way, throughout the season. Sometimes when Arsenal have gone, you know, from a rubbish performance in the first half, they've come out firing in the second half.
Yes.
But this game, it just seemed like psychologically they gave up. There was just absolutely nothing they could do. They were just done by the atmosphere. They were done by the enthusiasm and the physicality of Crystal Palace and the press that they were putting together. And it was just dreadful. I don't expect
Yeah.
that, but
I mean, it was a mixture of dreadfulness, but as I say, I'm in agreement with you that Palace were amazing.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
think look, Palace
They
deserve to
schooled us.
win.
They
They
schooled us.
scored a.
Yeah.
They deserve to win, but I just Palace is a good team, right? Don't get me wrong. Crystal Palace is a good team. The current run Arsenal were on, it should not have been as bad as it was. That is
Yes.
my point.
Yeah.
That is my point.
We
It's
should
not.
have
I'm
we
not.
should have been more solid and harder to beat. Is
Absolutely,
Yeah, yeah. And
absolutely.
we have
Part.
done in other games. We've come up against it. I mean, I'm thinking of City now, and I know we still
Yeah.
lost City, but Palace are no City. City were relentlessly not able to get the ball off us.
Yeah. Exactly. We were the Crystal Palace to
We were the
City.
Crystal Palace on that day.
Yeah.
So that's what. And look, I don't care. 10 of those players were exactly this. Well, I think Martinelli was playing against City. So nine
Yeah.
of those players
Nine
were
of the
exactly
players.
the same. And that's why I mentioned earlier the I couldn't understand that. And the gaffer has to take some responsibility for that.
I think that it comes down to the manager in these halftime talks and his thing to just say to the players, look, get your shit together, right? When Arteta first came in, I saw one of the interviews with Alex Lacazette, and he said the manager shouted a lot, right? I
Yeah.
wanted to see that passion. We've come against teams that have been harder to beat and harder running and more organized than Crystal Palace in Wolves. and we did a double over them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And we came from 1-0 down to win those games, right? It may have been the last minute and luck, but luck only comes your way if you
Yeah.
try hard.
Absolutely.
The problem was they weren't trying hard enough for me. That's the issue.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all right, man. Crystal Palace game, 3-0 loss. Okay, hard to take. And then
Very
you know
hard
what?
to take. Yeah.
Very hard to take. But I was still a bit more
It's
optimistic.
one game. It can happen.
It's
Yeah.
one game. You can have a blip, right? I was still
I
optimistic.
thought it was a blip. I thought it was a
I thought it
blip.
was, honestly, I thought as well. But we've discussed this previously, where we have this fear of Arsenal not being able to bounce back or not having the ability to bounce back quick enough. I mean, you said this in the pod when we lost against Liverpool 2-0. You said
Yeah.
my worry is that against Aston Villa they may not be able to bounce back, and they did.
And they did.
That was that was to their credit. But Brighton at home at the Emirates, right?
It
Bogey
was
team, yes, I know,
it was the
but
perfect game to bounce back, though. Zed, a home game. I mean, come on, they hadn't scored a goal in something like 6 or 7 games or something like
mhm,
that.
yeah, absolutely.
Certainly haven't won in 9, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. They've been on a torrid run of form.
absolutely. And aren't we just, Zed? Aren't we just the team that likes to break the records? But not the good records,
All the wrong
all the
ones, mate.
wrong records. Aren't we
All,
just the team that when you're absolutely in dog shit form, you can't hit a barn door, your strikers aren't scoring, you're leaking goals, you're not winning games. Here, come over to
come
the
to the
Emirates.
Emirates.
We'll give you a 3 points. We'll keep you in the league.
What, mate? It's been absolutely the opposite this season. I have to say, Arsenal, the Emirates has somewhat been a fortress recently.
Yeah,
It was getting the Wolves, Brentford, uh, get the Burnley thing out, but Liverpool, we lost that. But City came in, barely won, that kind of thing. So it, Arsenal was still, getting results. West Ham, Southampton, you know, we were still winning games at home. Newcastle, but it just seemed like I don't know what the hell happened in Brighton. I am just shocked. Uh, it's just absolutely stupid. And I think you're going to touch on this, and it started with the lineup.
yeah.
Go on then. What did you think when you saw the lineup?
So I think in between the Palace game and the Brighton game, because we're only talking a few days, because we're on the Monday and then we're playing on the Saturday, aren't we?
Yeah.
Um, there's lots of debate, isn't there, Zed, about you know Tavares. Does he come
Hmm.
in because he was subbed
Hmm.
at half time? What's the future for him if he doesn't play? So I think I knew that there was going to be ambiguity around the Tavares issue and what happens at left back. So we know
Yeah.
what he did in the second half at Palace. He moved Chaka to left back. And we know Chaka, he's a good player.
Hmm.
He's a good, um,
Professional.
yes, he's a good professional. I think that's absolutely the best words that you could use here. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Is
Hmm.
that he's not going to be one of these guys that will moan. If you put him in goal, he'll play in goal. And he'll
Yeah.
probably do a job for you in goal, to be honest with you. He's a footballer, right? And I thought that, yes, it was probably a smart move. Tavares having a stinker in the first half. Um, he solidified, or he was trying to solidify things by bringing Chaka at left back. But then,
Hmm.
obviously, then the other issue is what happens in midfield because of the party injury, and that was
Yeah.
another big debate as well. So I'm thinking this guy has learned his lesson from last season and the beginning of this season, somewhat, right? We had a disaster last season, and you and I have discussed this in person. Well, what
Yeah.
time before the pod started, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we always identified and we agreed that if this guy continues to play round pegs in square holes, this team will continue to suffer and it will continue to bring trouble. Okay?
Yep.
One of the good things that had come out of his consistent lineups was he was playing a left back at left back, he was playing a right back in right back, he was playing a centre back, etc., etc. Right? And that's one of the reasons why we were working and it was successful. Now,
Yep.
what he did in this game against Brighton was to rip all of that up, Zed. He decided to go with Chaka again at left back and absolutely destroy our midfield. So when you have a successful midfield, and you will have the stats, I won't have the stats because
Mm.
I don't look at stats very much, Zed. But when you have a number of majority of your games where Party and Chaka have played in them, we have won those games. What he did in that lineup, Zed, was not only we had no choice that Party was not fit, but then
Yep.
he took out the 50% part of the success of that midfield and put him at left back, and then
Yep.
replaced him with Lokonga, who bless him, he's a good kid and he's got a great future ahead of him, and he's a talented player. He was captain at his last team, so there must be a player in him somewhere, but he hasn't played again for months. Same point as you made earlier. He hasn't
Yep.
been
Yep.
rotated in. We were knocked out of the cups very early, hence he wasn't able to, um, you know, play his trade. We're not in the Europa League either, so he hasn't been able
Mm.
to play his trade elsewhere to sort of slot back in. So
Yep.
putting what he did then is it looks like, because there was a debate, because that was actually a reason called. I've always loved. I'll tell you this, Ed. You may know this, you may not.
Mm.
I love Saka in the forward position, and he's brilliant
Yeah.
and he's amazing and he's his best position.
Yes.
But in the Emery years, or year or so, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
Chaka was made at left back. He was
Yeah.
amazing. His ability, I mean, he was I'd say in some cases, he was as good as Tierney.
You mean Saka, right?
Saka, yes,
Yeah,
Saka.
Saka.
Saka
Okay.
at left back. So he could have even gone with Saka at left back. And look, we've talked about Pepe and rotation. He could have brought Pepe in. Pepe
Yeah.
would have done a job, right?
Yeah.
Pepe had a brilliant game against France in the international break. Not
Yes,
since
he did. Yeah.
Williams since. So playing Chaka at left back, taking him out of a very successful midfield, bringing somebody in like Lakonga to actually do the party job is
Mm.
big boots to handle. And then still sticking with the 4-3-3 and playing Smith Rowe again and not Martinelli. Okay, so we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a
Well,
few minutes.
Martinelli started, but I think Smith Rowe started in the midfield.
Sorry, absolutely. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Martinelli started on the left. I'm confusing the games now.
Yeah.
Smith Rowe playing at eight. Sorry, what I meant to say was he's tried that before and it didn't work. The Smith Rowe in the three with
Yeah.
Odegaard. Um, it was going to always leave us exposed, and we again we were schooled at home by Brighton.
Yeah.
There
And
was
you know
no
what?
period in that game that I can, other than again the last 5 minutes, the 6 minutes of stoppage time we had. There was no period of that game where I felt we had some major control.
I think up to the about 80. So there's a couple of incidents. For first, let's just talk about the lineup, though. I absolutely agree with you. I think that move to move Xhaka, who has been, as you say, one half of your greatest double pivot that we've had in recent time, along with Odegaard just sitting right in front of them in that advanced midfield. I'm not even going to call it attacking midfield, a bit of an advanced midfielder, right? Doing his things, getting the freedom. That three-man midfield that he's been playing recently with Party at the base with Xhaka and Odegaard playing the number 8 roles and, defending and getting into the box late. That has been working. So the move to move Xhaka on left back, absolutely worst decision from Arteta for about 15, 20 games, I'm going to say.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely the worst decision. And then Lokonga, again, a worst decision. For me, if you're doing this, if, for example, you're set on Xhaka to be the left back, you've got a player who can probably do a better job than Lokonga because while Lokonga is a good lad and he's got the ability to play in the midfield, he's more of a midfielder and a number 8 than he is a defensive player for
yeah,
me,
yeah.
right? He hasn't got that, the discipline to just sit in front of the back
It's
four
not his
and just do
position.
his.
It's
It's
not
not
his
his position.
position.
It's
It's
not his
not his
position.
position. And the other thing is that I guess we have to bring in here, Zed, is and this is a theme that's come out now.
Yeah,
And I did say this to you in previous pods. You see, I'm being accused at the moment by a lot of my Arsenal groups, if you want to call it that, people that I have Arsenal affiliations with, right?
Yeah,
That you backing this manager now, and look, it's all going tits up, and it's your fault because you're backing him. And I'm like, no, I back Arsenal, and if
of
Arsenal are
course.
playing well, I'll continue to support them, and I'll say the manager's doing a good job. But I'm about to be very critical of the club and the manager now, in the theme of did we do enough in January?
Well, you know what? Let's put that club thing for one side, and we will touch on it in about 10-15 minutes
No,
because
no.
I
The
want to
reason
just
why I'm saying now is that it
yeah.
cost us in this game, and I think it needs to be mentioned here in the context of
It,
this
it
game, because had we got a replacement centre midfield, I don't think you're seeing Lakonga there at the
yeah,
base. You
but
know,
the problem is right. You've got in January, you out of all the cups, you've got about 12 games, right? Which midfielder were you going to get the
well,
person ready and acclimatized
yeah,
and acclimatized to the Premier League? You could have had a Lakonga-esque player bought in, right, under 23 as the policy right now, like a, you know, and
Zed,
they would
it was
get
Lakonga
chucked
ready
in.
in that game? Tell me, was he
No,
ready?
but let me finish on that point 1 second then, yeah? So while Lakonga was not ready, you have a player on the bench who's done the job of
Yeah, I know what
stringing
you're gonna say.
the,
Yeah,
the midfield for
yeah,
about 7 bloody years in the
yeah.
Premier League,
And
right?
actually,
In
a dependable guy in El Neni. I know you're about to say, aren't
absolutely
you?
right,
Yeah,
El
yeah.
Neni, right? I'm not the biggest fan of El Neni, and I think he's not the most glamorous of players, right? But like
He could have done a job.
Xhaka, he could have done a job. Like Xhaka, he's a professional, right? He's very professional when it comes to his attitude. He always plays well. I remember at the start of last season when he was playing instead of Xhaka with Party, and everyone was like, "Bloody hell, there's a player there,"
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So he's got a decent amount of experience playing for this team because remember he's been there from Wenger years. He's
yeah.
probably one of the oldest serving players in that team right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, and he wears his. Again, you're right. You're not wrong there. He's not the guy who's going to be pinging, 50-yard passes through threading through midfield. But what he
But
will do is, and
protect the back foot.
but let me just sort of answer your point though, because you're absolutely right. You've answered my point and my query brilliantly. That why didn't play El Neni instead?
Yeah,
Because I think that's probably what I would have done. I would
yeah,
have said,
absolutely.
right, let's
I
go
would have
back
done
to
that.
what we know. El Neni. I mean, remember El Neni and Party had a blinder against Manchester United. I mean, he turned into
Yeah,
prime Iniesta on that
yeah,
day against
absolutely,
Manchester United last
absolutely.
season. You know,
Yeah,
so we know that there's a player again that could do a job. And why Arteta went for Lakonga instead is clearly telling us that he doesn't rate Mohamed El Neni. Again, that's
but
why I'm referring back to the.
it's not that because he's played Mohamed El Neni over the 2.5, nearly 3 years that
When
he's
was the
been there.
last time you saw him play those, Ed, for the
No,
Arsenal?
I get that, right? I get that. That he last season he played him a lot more than he has this season. This season he hasn't got a lot look in, but he hasn't sold him. He hasn't tried to move him on. There's been no rumors of loan or anything. So he clearly doesn't want him out the club. He wants him as an option, right?
Yeah,
He wants him on the
but he's not
bench,
going to use him.
but he's not going to use him.
Yeah,
That's the idiocy. So when he didn't want a player like Aubameyang, who was still a big player. Let's say when he didn't want a player in Guendouzi, right?
yeah,
He was out the door the next day. When he didn't want anyone else to play, they were out on loan. Balogun, right? Young player, has a future, was sent on loan, right?
yeah,
He didn't want the Runason keeper. He was out the door, right? Nothing has ever been said about Anleni. They got close to him selling to Besiktas, but I'm pretty sure he's the one who pulled the plug,
yeah,
right? So my point is, Lakonga is a young player who isn't a defensive midfielder. You've put Xhaka a left back. You want to play Odegaard. You want to play Lakonga. Fine, play the 2-8. Sit Mohamed and Lenny in front of your back four and say,
yeah,
mate, screen it. And he will run all 90 minutes to screen it. He will pass sideways to Xhaka. He will pass sideways to Cedric. He will pass sideways to Odegaard because that's all his job is.
yeah,
Tackle, pass sideways. That's what we need to do. Odegaard can still play there. And you know what? It would have been much better if he played Elneny, Xhaka, Odegaard in midfield. And you know what? Throw in Rob Holding in a back three.
yeah. And look, I still stick by my point. An Artur from Juventus, who's played in a really tough league and technically very good.
Hmm.
would have been a great option to come off the bench and not off the bench to come and start in that game. Because when you are the January window is all about predicting what may happen if
Hmm.
your team and Arthur from the reports, and again we don't know what really went on in the club and the negotiations and what silliness Juventus were playing as well. I think Arthur wanted to come and he wanted to play under Arteta from the
Look,
reports.
he wanted to play, man. He wasn't playing before that. Okay, so we touched on this when we were doing the pods, the first 3 or 4 pods in January when we kicked all this off, right? It was Juventus who pulled the plug because now he's playing regularly. So Max Allegri had him in his plans because he was still trying to figure out what the best system was, right? He had Locatelli, he had Ramsey, he had like 7, 8 midfielders. So he wanted Ramsey got rid of, he got rid of, a couple of players, and then now he's set. So he had him in his plans.
Yes.
Uh, right, while I get it, but Arthur had never played a single Premier League game. He was going to come in with 12 games remaining and had to adapt quickly and then
But
potentially
but
start.
we don't know that though, do we? Because at the end of the day, knowing
We,
that
we, we, we do. Dennis Suarez. Do you want me to say anything more?
Party with his fitness issues was always, a tackle away from um, getting injured. And look, it's the same recurring injury. Chaka, you know, we could have upgraded on him. This
He was out the door, but he still stayed,
yeah,
right?
and El Neni, they could have done something with him. So what they could have done is they could have sold El Neni in January. Done if they want to sell El Neni, they would have sold him. And that's the
Exactly.
and that's
That's
the
my
link
point.
that's the link I'm making to you that I am agreeing with you in that way. That if you're not going to sell him, then bloody play him,
Play him. Play
right?
him. That's what it
But
was.
but my point is and what I'm trying to stress here is they should have done some business. They should have replaced El Neni then with an Artur or someone like that, and then given Artur some minutes, you know. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Now Artur probably he's sitting on the bench at Juventus anyway. To be fair, most of the time, right? It wouldn't have been any different. But where we he would have played now, wouldn't he? He would have
What?
played against against Brighton on Saturday. Would he or would
I,
he not have?
no, no. My point isn't that he would have played. My point is, I don't think he would have done any better than Lokonga.
Oh, I
Lokonga's had
disagree there.
no,
Oh,
no,
I
no. Look,
disagree there.
look. He spent. Lokonga's had more minutes this season than Arthur had until before
Look,
bloody
Lokonga,
January.
Lokonga had a stinker though, didn't he? Let's be
Well,
honest.
absolutely. What I'm saying is, right, it's easy to say we should strengthen and bring players into January. Unless you were buying off a direct rival, right? Unless you were going for someone from Leicester, someone from bloody, Southampton or Premier League proven player, I will put my hands up and say, yeah, you're right, you should have gone it. That's what I would have said. But if you're going to bring a player from Serie A, throw him in by 5, 10 minutes every game, assuming that's what Arteta does, which he wouldn't have done because,
But that's
as
the
we've
point, though,
discussed,
isn't it?
he
It's
wouldn't
what
have
he
done it.
wouldn't have done
So
it, and that's
so
where I'm
that would have been
critiquing here.
useless. Yeah, and that would have been
What I
useless.
would have wanted is this is the problem here it's actually the coach's behaviour in this that is the root cause of what I'm trying to
It
say.
is. It
I'm
is.
saying he should have brought him in and said, "You're competing with Chaka. You're
Mate,
competing," and told Chaka that I have brought this guy in to compete for one of those three midfield places, right? And
if he wanted to do that, he could have done that not with Lukonga. He could have done that with Elneny.
I think Lukonga is what we've seen of him. Yes, he's been rusty because he hasn't played enough.
He hasn't played
But I'm going to say it again. Whatever the next game is who are we playing next? It's
Southampton,
Southampton away. Lukonga should be nowhere near that pitch
but
again.
he'll start. But he'll start.
And this is the problem, isn't it? Really, is that I would go with what your critique was a few minutes ago. Is go with what you know, and then bring Lukonga in for rotation. Win your game and bring Lukonga on for some minutes.
Absolutely.
Um,
So Lukonga could have come on in.
I know what your point is. Your point, Zed, is more around. We know that the coach wouldn't have done this, so there was no point doing it. And I'm agreeing with you on that
Hmm.
point. But I'm saying well, that's wrong of the coach as well, then, because what the coach should be doing is just as he had been doing with the left backs and the right backs and some other positions, because we're going to come on to Lacazette in a minute as well. Again, no replacement striker from Aubameyang has cost us because he's not firing. And yes,
Hmm.
there was number of assists that Lacazette had. But again, January is there for that reason, is to bring your players in, and it doesn't matter if you don't use them
Mhm.
again. You still have got competition for places.
So look, one thing. Okay, in for the striker one, I agreed with you back then that we should have got someone in.
Even like a Morata or somebody like that to come in.
Yeah.
I mean,
A bench option, yeah,
a
I
bench
agree.
option, yes.
I agree, right? But as far as we are aware, and that's what's been happening, is that Nketiah is the bench option, right? Well, no, no, I'm not talking
yeah,
about whether it's a good bench option or not a
yeah,
good bench option, right?
yeah,
What I'm saying is, right, saying that you should strengthen in January. January statistically is the hardest transfer window, right? From identifying players, from buying players, from getting the right players in,
yeah,
right? Most of the time, January windows operate with loan signings, right? The best signings in January windows have been Aubameyang, Bruno Fernandes, right? Both of these were already established players with good amount of experience. If you wanted to get rid of Aubameyang, yes, you should have bought in an established player. You know what? I would have even gone to Milan to say, can we, loan Olivier Giroud for 6 months?
not a bad option because
Not,
he
not, not.
scores goals. Yeah,
We know he scores goals. He's a bench option. You bring him on, chuck some crosses in the box. He would have done it. He's doing bits for Milan and scoring important goals.
yeah, he is. Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I don't
Right?
think that was a bad. There were
He
other options as well. Origi from Liverpool. Why
Origi
didn't we
from Liverpool.
pursue that? You
They
know,
probably wouldn't have taken the
Origi
strength on the
probably.
Arsenal.
I mean, look. Everyone knows I love Lacazette, and it probably is coming to the end of his time with us. But
Yes.
Origi would be scoring goals.
Yeah. I mean, look, it could have been a handful of players that could have bought in, right? To do something. I would have preferred someone from the Championship or from the Premier League, second striker, someone. So one of the best signings for me for the January window was Burnley's Wood Weghorst, right?
Yeah,
18 million. Arsenal could have gone in and said, "Here's a 6'7" bloody giant. Why can't we buy him? He may be old, but here's the second bench option. We put a million crosses into the box with the likes of Cedric and
yeah.
what you call
We
thing.
just don't do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Here's a giant who will head everything in. And you know what? He has been great for Burnley.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't have minded
I'm,
him, and
I'm a good fan.
he'd have probably sat on Arsenal's bench as well.
Easily would have. Easily would. Why wouldn't he? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't he? Right? So it's those kind of clever, smart signings which I would have gone for. But for the midfield, right? And it does, and I agree with you, it comes back to Arteta. And it is with that, if Lakonga had been playing consistently,
He
coming
may have
in,
been better
he
prepared.
may have been better prepared.
Yeah.
So I think while January may have helped, create more pressure, the starting 11 bloody know that they're the starting 11.
Mm. Look,
That's the issue.
finally from me on this, Zed, I'll
Yeah.
just say that there's naivety in not planning for just in case
I
emergency
think there's
situations.
naivety is not using your squad. If
It,
you look at Pep, if you
I'm
look
with
at
you there, and I've agreed
yeah.
with you there, Zed. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you've got to gamble as well,
Look,
and we
I
didn't.
don't I don't disagree, right? You could have gambled. You could have gambled. But based on how the team have played, based on how Arteta operates, and this is a criticism of Arteta.
It is.
If in the previous pods I've backed him and I said, look, I can see where this is going. But the problem he has is he is very inflexible, and the best managers in the Premier League, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, watch them use the squad. The City and Liverpool game was one of the highest quality games I've seen of the Premier League of
Brilliant,
late, right? It
brilliant.
was a bloody brilliant game, right? Half, I think 60 minutes, Henderson, the club captain, was off,
Yeah,
right? Naby Keita was on.
yeah,
Jota, who scored the goal, off. Luis Diaz was on.
yeah, yeah.
Use the squad.
Brilliant squad.
Against brilliant squad, but not just the fact that it's a brilliant squad. The squad is being used, is utilized. Bobby Firmino is ready. Everyone is ready to play, and they're not just sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, we're not going to play today. We know who the subs are," as you said earlier.
Mm,
It's stupidity and naivety from the manager to not use the squad to keep them on their toes. If you want competition for places, make sure there's bloody competition for places,
mm, mm.
right? But that's all I say. But overall, just to tie this up, Brighton game absolutely horrendous as well. I would say one thing, couple of unlucky things which I wanted to touch on earlier,
Go
which
on,
was
go on.
the offside. for Martinelli's goal.
Yeah, it's
The,
unfortunate, wasn't it? Yeah,
unfortunate.
I
I
have
think
to be
when you
very critical of the officials there because they took
yeah
5 minutes there, didn't they, to and if it's not clear and obvious, then why did it take? It's took you 5 minutes. It's clearly telling you it wasn't clear and obvious. You go with the
absolutely
on-field decision, don't you?
yeah absolutely, and that's it should have been a goal. I think that could have changed the momentum of the game. Arsenal could have got
Yeah,
some
I
confidence.
think so, but we were generally quite poor. I mean, what would have that?
As
Yeah.
I said, I'm gonna at least we've talked about negative for 50 minutes. I want to look at least some positives. Odegaard still tried. There was still some matters of unluck in there. Hitting the post a couple of times.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
yeah. So
Nketiah hit the post as well, didn't he? Yeah.
yeah. I think when you're down, nothing goes your way,
What
as
do you
we've
what
said.
do you think about Lacazette and the next game? Do you start Nketiah?
Next game against Southampton. No,
Yeah. Do you
look,
go with
mate.
the same?
I will put money on by the fact I'll put a bet on right the fact that it will be the same exact lineup
Mm.
unless Kieran Tierney is being rushed back or he gets some sense and plays a back three.
Kieran
I hope he
Tierney is
plays.
out for the season.
Oh, sorry, not Kieran
Yeah,
Tierney. Sorry,
yeah,
Xhaka left back. Sorry, that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Kieran
yeah.
Tierney is out, right? Nuno's not playing anymore. I think he's be out on loan next season,
So
guaranteed.
that's interesting then. Okay, I mean, I don't know if there's anything more you want to discuss on Brighton. What do you do in that next game then?
Okay, next game. If it's me, I'm the manager. I wouldn't have done something so colossally stupid anyway. But
Yeah,
anyway, I would have done, and I'm gonna do what I would have done this game, which is go with the back three,
yeah.
right? Gabriel, Ben White, and Rob Holding. So Rob Holding in the middle, Gabriel on the left, Ben White on the right.
Okay,
Give them the ability to pass the ball, thread them, right?
okay,
Left wing back, Saka,
okay. Yeah, yeah.
right wing back, Cedric,
Yes.
right, and then you go with Xhaka, Odegaard, what you call Martinelli, and Lacazette.
1 second. Let me just get this right then. So you're going to go for a four. Sorry, a
We'll go
three,
three,
four,
four, three.
three. So who are your two midfielders in the middle?
Xhaka and Odegaard.
And then you're going to go with you've talked about your wing backs, and then your three up top are
Martinelli, Lacazette, and there's only one person left who will start, which is Smith Rowe.
Smith Rowe. Okay,
I mean, I would prefer Pepe to start because I think he'll add more
yeah,
dynamic,
it's not going to probably happen.
but
You'd
but
say.
it's not going to happen.
Right, I can't. Where I'm going to disagree with you, Odegaard. I mean, you said it yourself earlier. You spoke about
Mm,
Odegaard and Chaka in the middle. I think that will be ripped. Where I'm with you, from what you said
mm,
earlier, is I would go if it was me back
yeah,
to what we know works, and I know back three has worked for us before, but I
yeah,
think we've moved a lot of players that we've had Ainsley Maitland-Niles that could have played the right wing back role. Lakonga, people have even talked about him coming back playing the wing back role because he probably
nope.
would do better because he'd be covered defensively somewhat. He's a little bit suspect there. Okay, I'm with what I would do is I'd go back to the
Mm,
4-2-3-1.
okay,
Okay, my four would be the back four that we know, bar obviously
KT.
KT, and I would probably give Lakonga a go again. To be honest with you, because look, that guy.
So your left back
Not
is
sorry,
Xhaka
not
then.
not Lakonga. Sorry, Tavares.
Tavares.
I'd be
Okay.
starting Tavares, and I'd be saying, right, we've signed you as KT's backup, right? And coach him and talk to him in the week and put your arm around him and say, right, look, no pressure on you. You go out and you play, right?
Mm,
But what I would do is I'd put a Martinelli in front of him because one thing about Smith Rowe, he was very suspect defensively, too high up the pitch, and that's one thing that Martinelli does track back. So I would put Martinelli on that left hand side to protect and help Tavares. Okay, in
yeah.
your middle, and this is where what's key for me and what we have to learn from the last couple of games is you don't move Chaka out from. I would be playing him and El Neni together.
Okay. So you'll have uh, your three-man midfield essentially, or a
No, no,
two-man
I'm going a
pivot.
two-man midfield, two-man
Yeah.
pivot of because don't forget Chaka has recently been playing that eight kind of more advanced role. right?
Yeah.
It would be El Neni that I would be saying you are the screen and you're basically playing
The
the
party
party
role.
role, right? Okay, and we know that he's dependable in that area. El
Yeah.
Neni is. We know that he will do a job there. So
He
that's what
he
I
he
would.
won't, he, won't- he won't pass forward, but bloody hell, he'll break up play.
He'll break up play, and that's what you needed against Brighton.
Yep.
You know. So yes, Chaka and El Neni in the middle. I have to say, and those are out there who criticise me for being a unconditional Lacazette fan, right? And you
Hmm.
know I love him. He's my favourite
Yeah.
player. I mean, I think Martinelli's kind of probably um, taken
Taking
over
that
him
spot.
now, yeah,
Yeah.
on that side. But that's for another pod. Hey, how about another pod in the next one? Who's your favourite player? Discuss idea for next one. Yes, I think Lacazette as I think look, Zed, if you're going to play people on form and take people out the team on form as what he had been doing and what he should be doing, Lacazette has had more than enough games now.
So you will play Nketiah to the middle.
If I'm honest with you, I think
Yeah.
it's time for a little bit of a tweak there, right?
Okay.
I think it's got to be Martinelli through the middle,
Okay.
right? I think it's going to be.
But you just said you want to play midfield.
I did have him on the left.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe then I have to switch that then and give Nketiah a go. Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're gonna.
And
So
Ketia through the middle. Sorry, Martinelli on the left because of the cover that he would give for
yeah.
Tavares. And on your right hand side, I'd be going with your Saka. Right?
Saka.
Another way around it is if we were going to be going through Martinelli in the middle, right? I'd probably be bringing Pepe on. Smith Rowe, I love him. He's a brilliant player. But we have to recognise Pepe is last 9, 10 games a season kind of player. He will
Yeah,
do
he gets
things.
into form, doesn't he? But okay. So let me just recap your team quickly. So Ramsdale stays. Obviously, there's
Yes,
no
yeah, of
question
course,
there,
yeah.
right? So you got back four of Nuno, Gabriel, White, and what you call Cedric,
Cedric, yeah,
and then you've got a two-man pivot with Xhaka roaming
and
forward
Mohamed, yeah.
and Mohamed, and then he's screening, and then you've got a number 10 in Odegaard, you've got Gabriel on the left, sorry, Martinelli on the left, and you've got Saka on the right, and potentially Nketiah or Pepe through the
Potentially,
middle.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I'm with you as well. I'm being realistic. I probably would have maybe gone with a Pepe through the middle as a false nine, but I don't.
Not even a false nine. Get him to play striker,
Yeah,
bloody hell.
but we just know that neither's going to happen, do we? Really, so we have to be
No,
as real possible. You know,
he's too inflexible for that.
I think if he's smart, he has to get Pepe in the team somehow, or more
Well,
minutes. Yeah,
if he's smart, he will adapt his tactics. But as you and me both know, I highly doubt it happens. But listen, mate, we're gonna wrap this up.
let's do it.
Uh, so I'm gonna
Let
ask
me
you.
finally just say though, let me just
Go
on
on.
that point is what do we think he's going to do? Is a really good point because
Okay, let me
yeah,
tell you what he's gonna do,
yeah,
and this is stone cold what he is going to do. I'm gonna bet money on it, so most likely I could lose, but I think I'll win anyway. Here's the team that's gonna play against Southampton: Cedric, White, Gabriel, Xhaka in the back four.
yeah,
Odegaard, Lokonga in the midfield, right?
okay.
He's going to go with Smith Rowe, Gabriel, Martinelli, Saka, and Lacazette. So it's going to be the exact same bloody team.
You haven't mentioned Odegaard there.
I have Odegaard with Lokonga in the double pivot, or
Ode-
in Odegaard, Lokonga, and Smith Rowe in the midfield, the same midfield that
so
got won over.
basically the same as
Same
Brighton.
team. I'm thinking he's going to go same as Brighton because
My
of how stubborn he
my
is.
God, the flack I'm getting from people, fellow fans at the moment because of him, it's just going to get worse. I mean,
It's it's going to
if
get
he
worse.
does that, it's a
We're out.
mistake. It's arrogance. Um, it's actually being very what's the word? It's arrogant.
It's arrogance. I think if you notice, um, Arteta is not a strong finisher. In the last two seasons, we've always had a struggle to finish.
There was a semi final of the Europa League where he was doing some stupid things as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think, look, we realized and we gave him a lot of flack to say he's a young manager who will learn. I think something that he hasn't learned from Pep, right, is the trust in his players and rotation. That's
Mm.
something that he needs to learn from Pep. But anyway, I think that's what he's going to do. We shall
Okay,
find
well,
out.
okay, I'm hoping he does learn and he goes with a lineup similar to what I've just said there, round
Hopefully,
round pegs
hopefully,
in
mate.
round holes. I'm
Uh,
hoping. Yeah.
mate, you're hoping I'm praying.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I'll say that. So I think just to round it off, right? It's a very simple question. Uh, I think you have to answer that honestly. The week Arsenal's top four hopes ended. Is this the week?
Um. Look, Tottenham are on a really good upper trajectory of form now. Their
Hmm.
fixtures are much easier than ours in the
Yep.
running. They've got a world class manager in comparison to, let's face it, a novice that's
Novice.
done very well, but still a novice. Um, I think if he can pump the players up to, you won't hear this a lot, but you'll hear it from me. If he can pump the players up enough to recuperate these three. Look, there's 6 points that were probably debatable points. Tottenham away,
Hmm.
Chelsea at home. No, that's Chelsea away. Sorry,
Chelsea away, mate.
Chelsea away.
Sure.
I think we'll still have enough to beat Manchester United even with our injury because they're absolutely hopeless, right?
Well, they lost to Everton,
And
so
they've lost to everyone. Well, so did we, but anyway, that's for another day.
we lost when Rafa was still there. So
Yeah.
I don't think.
if if we can recuperate these 2 games points in the games against Tottenham and Chelsea, I think we're back in it. If I'm
Okay.
honest with you, if we don't and we drop points in those games, we will more likely finish in a Europa League position, which will be a real big disappointment from where we were. I know many will ask, and you may ask me as well, is it
Mm.
why would that, and is it because Arteta? Because I'd say that I know you sort of slightly disagreed with my
Mm.
perspective on the January. I'd say it'd be a combination of the club, not just
Mm.
Arteta, because we know that the decisions around transfer are not all down to him, right?
Yep.
The club did not reinforce in key areas as the striker area we discussed in the midfield area in January, and a mixture of some pressure and
Hmm.
immaturity being the youngest squad in the league, and thirdly, and this is bottom of that those three. I know others will probably say it's top of that list because of their agendas, but let's not go there.
Hmm.
Bad decisions by the gaffer.
Okay. No, that's fair. I think that's a very nice way to wrap it up. So thank you very much all for listening. I've been Zed,
You
and
have
joining
picked
me
up
as
a
well.
bit, I've got to say, since you
I
perked up
have,
a
I
bit.
have,
Yeah,
I have.
so it did
I
work.
think, yeah, my closing monologue is going to be a bit more happier than it is was the opening monologue. I think
Yeah,
I
I was
say
going to ask
this.
you to record the opening thing again. It was that dead.
No, mate, that's how I was feeling. So you know what? People should be able to see, have this journey with us through
Yeah,
my dead mood to,
yeah,
getting hyped up for criticizing Arteta.
exactly.
But again, let's try this again. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Harry, for your insight and a quite fiery pod this week.
It was.
Yeah,
We do like a bit of. When I'm at Nando's, I'm always hot or above. So that's me.
nice, nice. But anyway, folks, thank you very much for listening, and tuning in.
Thank you.
I've been Zed. Harry, you want to plug your Twitter?
Yeah, you can catch me on at Harry Carnu, and Carnu spelled Khanu.
Yeah, and you can catch me at Z_TAGP. Stay safe. Have a good rest of the week, and we will see you in episode 13. Bye.